Thomas and Cartwright are swinging.
The Bulls and Pistons hated each other. They hated each other. And they should have. I mean, they pounded each other.
And Rodman and Jordan going at each other.
Each and every game that we played against Detroit, we considered a war.
We had flexed our muscles. They were flexing their muscles. And we wanted to remain kings, and they wanted what we have. So they were the ultimate game.
Between 1987 and 1991, these two teams would play each other 47 times, 4 times in the playoffs. Each game, a battle for both supremacy on the court and a place in NBA history. But ironically, the seeds of this rivalry were sown in Boston.
The Celtics were the old veteran team that nothing bothered them, and that annoyed the Pistons because the Pistons were trying as hard as they could, and nothing they did worked.
Oh, my! What a mistake by Detroit!
Then they jumped over the Celtics.
Isaiah sideline. It's through!
They became the bad boys, and then along comes this team out of the Midwest in Chicago, and the Pistons treated the Bulls the same way the Celtics had treated them. These young kids don't have what it takes.
We knew they were out there. We knew they were up and coming. But at that point in time, we just dismissed it because we knew they couldn't beat us.
While Detroit may not have considered Chicago a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference, they still had reasons not to like them.
The game that the Pistons played was rugged, it was tough, it was gritty, and then here comes Michael. Michael is art.
Here's Jordan down the middle all the way! An unbelievable ball!
We didn't like seeing this young punk come in with all this great skill. And if you came down the middle, you were just going to get killed.
Michael on the move against Vinnie Johnson to the hoop. He is necktied. Oh. Michael Jordan goes down hard.
For Piston captain and Chicago native Isaiah Thomas, beating Jordan and the Bulls was personal.
Isaiah was a great star in Chicago. He was the athlete Chicagoans were maybe most proud of. And Michael walks in, just takes Chicago away from him.
You know, you come home and your hometown fans despise you. That must have been tough to take.
It affected me because as a kid, I always wanted to play for the Chicago Bulls. But I loved it. I mean, I enjoyed it because we were always beating those guys.
Detroit realized Chicago had a more athletic team than they did, so they induced the younger, more fragile Bulls into a physical and psychological battle that would shape the rivalry for seasons to come.
Nice play at all. And Lampier taking a shot at Paxson, who did not like it.
It was almost like they bullied us and pushed us around. We always kind of felt like we had to challenge them and stand up to that, and that wasn't really who we were.
It was fun to get them off their game. That's how we got off. We were a very cerebral team. We loved to play the mental games.
Rodman would punch Pippen in the face or to hit him in the chest. He would so upset him, so infuriate him. Pippen couldn't play in these games.
They're so concerned about showing that they're men and they're physical and they're not going to back down. You know they weren't really thinking about how we're going to execute and beat these guys.
Detroit and Chicago would meet for the first time in the playoffs in 1988. And the Pistons were determined to make sure the Bulls and the league's newly crowned MVP knew who ruled the Eastern Conference.
On the switch, Jordan clobbered, and the Pistons want to make Jordan pay.
Detroit's game may have lacked artistry, but it was effective, and they dismissed the Bulls in 5 games.
And the Pistons have now a return trip ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals.
The 1988 series, however, was merely a prelude of things to come. In 1989, Michael Jordan would lead the league in scoring for the 3rd straight year, and he would lead Chicago on a remarkable run to their first Eastern Conference Finals.
Hey, the Bulls win! They win!
But waiting for Chicago were their old friends, who had a new twist in their plans to stop Jordan and the Bulls.
He's the focal point of everything they do, so let's just break down what they do, and then let's give them different looks. So Chuck says, yeah, you know, let's make a set of rules just for this guy.
The set of rules came to be known as the Jordan rules, and the Pistons considered them classified information.
Jordan rules? The Jordan rules. Is that something you guys made up?
You know what? The Jordan rules was just a whole lot of help.
Jordan over 4 players, and Sally came away with it.
The rules were more than defensive schemes, however. they were part of a grander psychological plan.
They always played into that. Michael wanted to do it all. Michael trying to score it all, and played it against him.
I mean, he was like a warrior that said, all right, they got three people, I'm still going to take the ball to them.
My ego was involved, because I don't want a team to seem like they could dominate me or dominate us as a team.
Detroit met in the 1989 Eastern Conference Finals. Jordan was determined to prove that the Pistons and their Jordan rules could not stop him. But it was Detroit's team defense and the Piston guards who imposed their will on the series.
Again, it's the dirty work. Detroit wants it more at this point.
Detroit's victory in 6 games would propel them to their first NBA title and rattle the confidence of the Bulls.
I remember in '89 when I was really frustrated about how this team was playing from Jordan rules to try to double and triple team me and make other players hurt them. And we knew what was happening, but yet we still didn't make them pay for that.
But Chicago was hoping that the experience of 1989 could help them the following season as they once again reached the Eastern Conference Finals, this time pushing Detroit to a decisive 7th game.
I thought it was a good opportunity to get over this mountain, this hurdle that seemed to have been in the way for the last 3 years.
Work all teams for this guy. Play hard. Leave it all on the floor. Let's go.
But Detroit had different ideas.
I thought it would be a cakewalk of a game. They just weren't strong enough mentally to compete at the level that we were competing at.
Thomas was right. The Bulls weren't ready, and the Pistons blew them out.
Bulls can't buy a basket. The lead is 20.
It's one of those situations where at certain points you think, I don't know if we can beat this team.
Jordan could not beat the Pistons by himself, and Scottie Pippen was a non-factor, falling victim to a migraine headache.
It was just one of those things where you went, they don't have it. There's something here or here that they haven't figured it out yet.
It's over. The Pistons return to the NBA Finals for the 3rd straight time.
When we lost that game, I got on the bus, and I remember my father coming on the bus, and I'm back yelling and screaming, and he's doing all his best to try to calm me down and say, it's only a game, you'll be given another opportunity. And I'm saying, well, we've been given so many opportunities, we're not going to get as many as you may think.
But Jordan and the Bulls would use their Game 7 defeat as motivation for the upcoming season.
In 1990-91, our whole focus was on Detroit. No one else made a difference.
And the team as a whole resolved to change their approach to Detroit in both body and mind.
This was a playground type team that played a very disciplined, organized game that was very, very physical. So the involvement as a coach was, you got to go away from pressure.
Phil very much tried to reinforce with us that if they hit us, you went away from it. There's something else available to you.
Jackson emphasized a team game, and it would pay off during the 1991 regular season as the Bulls would finally finish with a better record than the Pistons. The ultimate test for the Bulls, however, would come once again in the Eastern Conference Finals.
We felt this is the chance to make them back down or shake our hands. So it was an unbelievable feeling. But then when the games came, it was unbelievable nervousness, too.
The Bulls were anxious to prove that they had learned their lessons well and began dismantling Detroit from the outset.
Right ahead to Jordan. Michael in the drive in on Vinnie Johnson all the way to the hoop and lays it out.
First thought I thought after the first 2 games, I thought we're in trouble because he's figured out how to play now. Once he started using his teammates and still getting 30, it almost became impossible to beat him.
Jordan was not the only Bull, however, who had figured out how to beat the Pistons, as a more determined and mature Pippen had emerged as well.
Yes, and it counts.
Chicago would no longer be intimidated by Detroit, nor baited into confrontation.
A beautiful backdoor pass for Pippen, and he is walloped. He knew he was going to get hit.
they understood that no matter what we threw up, when we hit them hard, when we talked garbage to them in the paper or in front of them, none of our antics were finally working.
But we learned that it took a little bit more than just, desire. We had to use our minds. We had to outthink the other team.
And he comes up shooting. It's in. Oh, Johnny Pax. Time is running out on this Detroit championship era.
It's Chicago in a sweep.
After all the losses and the frustration, sweeping them and winning on their home floor was about as good as it got.
Chicago's emphatic victory signaled the end of Detroit's run. But even in defeat, the bad boys managed to keep the rivalry alive by refusing to shake Chicago's hands as the game ended.
They left the bench, although there's 7 and 9/10 seconds remaining. The Pistons just left.
We were only doing what had been done to us. When we beat Boston, their starting 5 just left. They just walked out of the building.
They couldn't stand the fact that they could see us win on their court.
And we're not going out as demoralized. We're going out as we had just finished an accomplishment of a run that was unprecedented in the Piston history. We're very proud of it.
It just gave us more energy. And I think from that time on, I think we won 24 straight against Detroit, and we're not going to let them beat us anymore after that.
The Pistons would never challenge the Bulls again. But Detroit's 4-year battle with Chicago would prove invaluable in molding the Bulls into 6-time NBA champions.
The hurdles were very, very difficult, but I'm very happy that we went through those circumstances because it taught us to understand what winning was all about.
You know what they say,